The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions. Hello everyone, welcome back to Tokutalk.
Yes.
First part of a new little retrospective for us.
Yes.
Evolution of villain organizations.
Yes.
And we're starting things off with Sentai.
Yes. Because there are a lot.
There are a lot.
There are a lot of them. Now, we're not just going to... Let's talk about each one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about more of an overview. First off, is there anything about a villain organization, at least for Sentai, that you really like to see?
I love it when they... This may seem like a very shallow thing, but I always love it when they have good fashion sense. I love it when they are overdressed and gaudy, and when they love to own the room. Bandora.
Bandora.
Yeah.
She has a whole song.
A little infighting is always good.
It's a Tokyo.
I always like a little instability.
The same.
Yep. And it may sound a little strange, but competence.
No, I think that's fair.
It is, and when I say competence, I don't mean like they win every time, but like
there's an actual motivation.
There is a motivation. Like they have to be well written, obviously, but like when I say competence, I mean we understand why they're doing what they're doing, and they feel like a credible threat for our heroes.
Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah,
is they have to feel like this is something that only this Sentai is equipped to go up against. Yeah. At this point in time for this story,
I think competency is such a big one, especially for me. Looking at something like Battle Fever, where even though it was, really campy, it still has one of my favorite like villain, I guess stories. In one of the episodes, we were just like, let's do something to Japan's fish industry, and I'll sit here like that's really smart. Actually, that's really well done, and I love the fact they were just like, all right, we have one very clear goal, and that was to make money. And the way they were going to make money is to control the fishing industry, so everybody else was bad, but theirs was good, so they can inflate prices. I see here like that's some real world shit, and I'm here for it. 10 out of 10. Let's go, Salome. And I think it's just because of the fact that again, Machiko Soga. But Queen Hadrian from Denziman and Sun Vulcan.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Denziman yet. It's definitely on our list.
It's on our list because it is fully Sun now.
Yeah, when I'm going back and doing all of that. But seeing her in Sun Vulcan, when she came in, I did not really remember anything about that show. Yeah. But then she came in.
Except for talking.
No, that was Battle Fever. Oh no, that was Sun Vulcan.
That was Sun Vulcan.
Oh god, the Sun Vulcan just. But yeah, it's just when she came in, right? Per usual, that woman controlled that room. Yes, she was like, "I'm here. I'm doing all of this. Y'all gonna follow me now." She got killed for it, but that's what she was gonna do. Yeah. So I admire her for pretty much everything. You spoke about infighting. I think a really big one. There are two that really come to mind for me. Right. Let's start with the more recent, and we'll go older. Okay. Tokuger,
of course.
Where it's just everybody was trying to kill everybody else.
It is this elite, upper class, like royalty. Everyone has titles like Duke and General and King, Viscount and whatnot, and everyone is scheming and backstabbing each other. And it's all about, trying to get the ultimate power seat. Everyone wants to unseat the Emperor of Darkness, and everyone wants to...
Or some people just want to make sure that he's the only one in power, but they're the only ones immediately under him.
Yeah, like if I don't necessarily want to be in charge, because then everyone's going to come after me. So I'm going to scheme to be the second in command, and then I will be able to be the snake on their shoulder, whispering in their ear, telling them, and then I can rule through, through proxy.
The second. Actually, there are three.
Okay.
We're just gonna keep going back. Okay. But I'm gonna do this one next. Live Man.
Knew you were gonna mention this one, and it's
fair.
This is honestly might be the peak in terms of Sentai villains, I think.
I would almost agree.
Okay.
I think the one that goes back a little bit further, I think, holds it up a little better for me. But I really... Just the motivations of everybody.
The motivations are all great. The characters are well written.
Yeah.
We have a really scary and intimidating head villain, Professor Bias. And Bias-sama, the way the show demonstrates that he is, that great performance from Joji Nakata, where we see that he is a charismatic, evil, nasty person who is willing to do anything, including kill his own.
To make sure, one, he lives longer, and two, that he's legitimately always the smartest person in the world. Because he steals your brain.
Yes.
So, it just like, oh my god.
Well, like right from the first episode where that spaceship blows up, and we find out that, the live men, their friends, their classmates, they've been corrupted by Bias, and now they have been physically transformed into monsters by his powers, and the way that eventually escalates, we talk about this scene so many times. But Mazinda running away.
Oh, at the end, it's
where she's just trying to get away from him, and she just wants to. Go ahead.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's such a overlying threat in that episode, and her fleeing for her life.
Yes,
is the great. And
it feels so real.
And then outsmarting him at the end of it. I'm sitting here like, I stand. I stand forever. And then she was great again a couple years later in Die Ranger. So it's just like, what do you do? We also got the Jetmen.
Yes.
Where everybody's trying to kill each other as the show goes along. Everybody's trying to kill everybody else.
After Live Man, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, Byron was just the whole thing, but I had to talk about the big one. At least for me. Change Man.
Okay.
Once Ahames comes into that show, that's when things get real for the villains.
Okay.
Because everybody starts backstabbing everybody else. They're trying to get what is his name? Bazoo. Where they're trying to get one over on him, but the thing is, he's apparently freaking Unicron. So he's just a whole planet.
Oh, I was thinking of Booba.
Oh, yeah. Booba happens. Shima kick. But Aham is just like, especially because once the villains start, I'm not going to say following her, but once she comes in and really starts to really shake things up because she wants to be in charge first. And then you have Guluk who's, going against her. And then there's a whole bunch of Guluk is getting tortured and getting a power up and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then they end up trying to go against Bazoo, but Bazoo's Unicron, so that's a whole issue that they got to deal with later. And then, them pretty much splintering off where half of them try to get away and then Booba dies. And they're like, oh no! And then Ahmed goes crazy and blows up their base. The Changeman base. And then Guluk pretty much ends up getting himself killed by trying to go against Bazoo, and that really doesn't work. And then then they had to go and blow up Bazoo as the entire planet. It was just like, especially, it's a very villain-focused show. So you know, having something like that, where it's just like the villains are the reason.
Would you say it's the most villain-focused show that we've had so far? What would you say is?
Gekka Ranger.
Okay.
Gekka Ranger and Tokucast.
Okay.
It is a very villain focused show, but I think it's definitely up there in terms of that. We bring up Gekka Ranger because Ryo, Melee, Long, and the three generals that are above them. It's just like all that infighting, and the Gekka Rangers, for the most part, aren't that great. Or at least 3 out of the 5 are. Yellow and blue sort of get left in the background. Right. And then, of course, you had Tokucast, where even though you're following the Tokucast story and it is a good one, the villains are sort of the main driving force of that show.
Because the way Tokucast is structured, it's the characters, the Tokucast themselves, truly are children playing their way through a fantasy. Where, I'm the hero, I'm the smart one, I'm super strong. And it really does feel like children are playing their way through a fantasy, and they have, in a way, visualized for themselves, if you were to look at this as children playing a game, they visualize the villains as this machinating force of darkness that is just spreading throughout the land, and they are fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah. Another thing I really like, because I'm going to focus on the positive first and sort of end the negative.
To you.
I like it when the villains realize that there's something wrong. Or the way that they're doing things isn't for the greatest benefit of everybody.
Okay.
I think a really good one of that is Magic Ranger.
All right. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen Magic Ranger, so refresh my memory.
With Enma. Absolute God Enma.
Right.
And then you had like and first you had Pantheon. And you see, especially, what is his name? The one with Cyclops. That was the one with the cloud on his head. Where he ends up being more or less sacrificed for Enma to come through.
Yeah.
And Sphinx being amazing. She was like, oh, this is not a thing to do. So she starts to go off on her own and figure out something. It's just like the only way that we're really going to end up doing is that, both the evil and the good magic work together to defeat Enma. So, and then she becomes like an ambassador at the end of the show. I love Sphinx. We don't see a lot of her, which I think is sort of a detriment, but she really worked. I really just enjoyed her. Yay. I'm going to bounce a little bit back and forth on the positive and negative here since we're actually talking about it.
Okay.
Do you prefer when a villain is there, like the main villain is there throughout the entire thing, or he's just like nebulous?
Well, it really depends on the story. Because both can be good.
Yeah.
Whether it's... Because if you want to focus more on your heroes, and the villain is just... We are attacking you from beyond, and then finally I've had enough of your shenanigans, I'm going to come down there and do it myself. Or sometimes they will show up, they'll be there from the get-go, but it's like, I'm not strong enough yet to fight you.
Or I can't get to wherever I am.
Or I can't get there to where I am. Shinkenger, I think, is a good example of that, where the villain I think gives a great in-universe explanation as to why he physically can't go and smack the Shinkengers down, because
I think that makes it work a lot better.
Because he's physically restrained by the realm that he's in, and he can't survive out of it for so long.
Or Enma was sealed beforehand, so he needs like a whole ritual to be able to come through.
Yes.
But then on the other side of that, you got things like Ninja.
I mean, I liked Ninja, but
I'm right though.
I'm
right.
It's the road.
He's in the floor. And what? And what? Kiba Getsu is just in the floor.
Because you have the son, who eventually becomes like a ranger at the 11th hour. You know what I'm talking about. One of the bad guys who becomes a good guy like later on at the end. Oh no.
He's like a Kyuemon who was doing everything behind the scenes. They were the main bad guy. I'm talking about somebody else. Oh.
But I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're talking about two different things. But I think it's... Here's why I'm willing to give Ninja a pass. It's because Ninja is one where it was all about the heroes. For me, Ninja was a show that was all about these 5, later 6, mainly just the original 5, who were all competing to be the best at their craft.
I guess.
And to me, that's what Ninja was really about. And the villains were just kind of this like nebulous threat that had to come in and like causing the heroes to bring their skills to the test. So for Ninja, I think it worked.
I don't think it did.
I know we all have differing opinions, and that's fine.
I really don't think it did. It's because of the fact that Kyuemon didn't.
I would say a worse example of this would be.
Oh, I know, it's right here.
Would be the one you're pointing at.
But I don't. Kyuemon didn't do enough for me most of that show until they really started to interact with Gold, with Star Ninja. But probably one of the worst examples of this is Zyuohger.
And I think one of the reasons is because the villains don't fit the overall theme of the show.
No.
When you look at something like Live Man, and we have Professor Bias, who wants to be the greatest, smartest person in all of creation.
It's very much so science versus science.
It is science against science, but also you have the main characters our heroes are students. They were scientists, they were astronauts. And you have someone who was like, my intellect is greater, I'm going to prove it by destroying you.
Yeah.
You have Zyuohger, and it's gamblers from space who are all about the games and animals. And
it don't work.
It could, I mean, what they could have done was, a most dangerous game situation where it's like, if they were actual, like, big game hunters, where we're here to hunt those humans and, we're going to mount their heads on our wall because it'll look nice at a dinner party and make for excellent conversation pieces. But that's not what it is. They're like, it's like Vegas gamblers.
Yeah.
Just like Baccarat and Blackjack and animals. And it does not work. And the main villain basically just sits there with his big old slug for a butt and just sits there in his spaceship.
It turns out he's a whole bunch of the foot soldiers.
It's dumb.
It's
not good.
You get your outliers. I'm looking at one right here, but there's another one. Mm-hmm. Key Ranger.
Mm-hmm. Which came next?
Yeah, which was after Zyuohger, where it's just like the bad guy already won.
The bad guy already won, and it's just like a lot of them. It is a nebulous evil empire.
But
it's just the bad guys.
In this case, it's not so much that they're coming to invade. They already invaded.
Yes, they already invaded.
They already won.
Mm-hmm.
It was just more about freeing. So it was a very different show in how they did that.
They're going to liberate the districts.
So it's just like, it makes sense the Emperor's on the other side of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
because he's kicked off his slippers, he's put his feet up, and he's enjoying a glass of space wine because he won.
In Space Australia.
Yes.
Go Space Dingoes. But then you end up having, you got Deca Ranger.
Uh-huh.
Which was very different.
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that, there's also one more. Where it's just
a lot of villain organizations.
Crime.
Shows.
That was a different villain organization. But name Crime.
It is just crime itself. Because our heroes they're cops. And what do? They catch criminals.
And you got their what's the word I'm looking for? You got their benefactor, more or less, with Agent Umbrella. Who's out there just giving them money.
Mm-hmm.
And weapons and stuff like that.
He's a broker.
Yeah, he's a broker.
Does what he can. Got to make that money.
That really ends up working for that show,
and
why I think it still worked better than SPD.
Mm-hmm.
But we also got one more, and this is something I wish they did more of.
Different factions.
Yes, Bokenger, where it was 4 different factions fighting against the Bokengers and each other. So it's just like, I really love the fact
Civilization, the Jaryu tribe, Dark Shadow, and the Ashu tribe.
Yeah. It was just so interesting to watch something like that, where we're fighting against 4 different factions of villains. So it made 90 every week feel different because it wasn't always fighting against this one person. Why didn't they win? Why didn't they send out a whole bunch of? They removed the question. Why didn't they send out a whole bunch of foot soldiers, monsters of the weeks, what have you, at one time? These people, 2 of them, there was only 2 of them. In the Asher tribe, they couldn't really do anything. And Dark Shadow, there was just 3 of them, and one of them was an idiot. So
you can do what you can.
And the other 2 were too prideful. So, they did that to themselves. It made the show that much more interesting to watch, and I still really put Bokenger in highest regard because it was just so different from everything else that ended up happening.
I would like to talk about how we've seen the villain organizations grow over time.
Yeah.
Or at least one of the biggest changes I think we've seen, and I feel like an easy way to sum it up, is we have seen them murder people with machine guns.
Well, that's more of a time thing.
I know, but still. We've seen them just straight up murder people with machine guns to much more galactic scales.
Yeah.
Where at the start of it, we look at the beginning in Sentai and we have these evil organizations, but everything still feels very localized.
Yeah.
Especially early on. It's just, it feels like a very centralized threat.
Or it's something very personal. Because, we had our galactic ones. We had Changeman fairly early on.
Yeah.
But you also got getting something like Biomap for the man.
Yes, and we look at how the change in budget and the change in filmmaking techniques over time has been able to expand the scope.
Yeah.
In a way that budgets and whatnot at the time did not allow for.
Especially things where the villains won't feel so centralized. Like Bioman isn't the same as Go Busters.
Right.
I put those two together because the way they set up their mecha was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, Go Busters just had Enter and Escape. You had Messiah at the beginning, and then he got killed, and then Enter took over. So it was just the two of them, and then Escape went crazy, and then she got killed. But then you also got, on Bioman's side, it was Dr. Man and his 3 underlings, which he created.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure which one I sort of prefer, though. Once again, it really just ends up depending on the story. Yeah. I do like a little bit more when it's not as centralized, though, because it makes it seem like the villains have to work a little bit harder. Mm. Where it's not just, send out monster. Enter had to go out and create the things from everyday objects.
Yep.
So it was really interesting to see those two and how different they were.
Mm. I also feel that I don't want to say it's gotten toothless over the years, but it definitely feels like it's lost a lot of the grit.
Yeah.
And a lot of that just comes from the time that they were made.
Yeah.
70s and 80s, you're going to have more of a grittiness to you see this in American filmmaking, Japanese filmmaking, television, whatever. There is a grittiness and there is more of a harder edge to what's going on.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that it's darker, because they can still get dark.
Yeah.
And maybe not as dark as it was, but it's still there, but it just feels a little more smooth.
Yeah.
More smoothed out. And it doesn't feel as... Sometimes they don't feel as threatening as a result, I think is the best way I can say it.
Even though I love Zenkaiger, I don't think the villains feel as threatening at the moment. I feel like they're sort of getting there, though, especially with Hakaiser being introduced and that whole thing. And how twisted that one seems to be, where it seems like a human was just Kamen Rider, pretty much like the original Kamen Rider, where he was just kidnapped and put into had cybernetic implants put into him. Who knows? Could be the dad, could not. We don't know yet. But yeah, it feels like, really depending on the show, it's lost some of the threat. I think, what's the last one that really, like, the threat was really there for me, besides Q-Ranger? Maybe actually Loop had. Like, you don't see people just straight up getting murked in the middle of the street, but you know that he blew up large parts of the city.
A lot of buildings get destroyed with a lot of people in them.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
No, yeah, this is just one of those
things. Anything else really jump out to you about organizations as a whole?
No, but I think there's a reason why I sort of prefer some of the older ones, and I think it really does come down to the villains.
Okay.
Like we said, Live Man, Jetman, Changeman,
Bioman,
Flashman, which is, from what I've seen, is really good. There is an edge to them where they're really not afraid to just show it. Yeah. Like, show how far they're willing to go.
Yeah.
Live Man was
That's kind of what I mean by the grit, because, again, we see people getting gunned down with machine guns.
That first episode of Bioman,
that's what I'm referring to.
Where we're just like, what?
We're willing to show that, as opposed to now where we'll blow up a building or a section of a building, and potentially, a lot more people could have died, but it's not just seeing a structure kind of just blow up.
It's a censorship thing.
Doesn't have the same... I wouldn't say it's a censorship thing.
It is, though.
I wouldn't say that. I would say more senses than censors, but...
No, it's just like what they're willing to show versus what they can show.
I don't know.
I don't think they can show people just getting gunned down in the streets anymore. At least not in Sentai, maybe right.
But even then, like, seeing a building blow up that may or may not contain people compared to seeing a flesh and blood human being
I think
gunned down is a different experience.
You just got to know how to frame it. Do like what they did in Live Man, where people were on that.
We knew people were on it
because you saw them.
Minorities.
You saw them on the ship beforehand.
Yep.
So it's just like, and then you showed the thing.
And we knew our main characters had an attachment to who was on there.
Yeah, because they had a little bit at the beginning. Like, I feel like if you're going to do something like that, especially in the modern ones, you just got to learn how to frame it. Like, show people in the building. That way you know they died. They ain't making it out. They did not make it out today. But yeah. let us know what you prefer in the comments below. What's your favorite Sentai Villain group? Why is that your favorite?
How do you feel about how they've changed over the years?
Yeah, what's your least? We're going to be doing this for Rider as well. I think Ultraman might actually end up being a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll think about how to do that one. But there is
as well.
There is a definite one to be said and made for Rider. Because that has changed drastically. But yeah, don't forget to join us on all the things. We'll see you next time. And don't forget, this is probably actually not coming out after the video, after the stream. So I hope you enjoyed our stream.
But we do have another one coming out?
Yes, we'll be streaming Bring Diamond Shining Pearl when that comes out on the weekend of the 19th. So the 20th, we'll be streaming that. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.